still because they don't want to be criticized. Is there any question you would like to ask Immortal Technique by any chance you can think of? Or I'll come back to you if you can't think of something that can be interesting.
My main question is that I've read that, first of all, it's really a good moment that I get the chance to talk with you. And I've been following the work for a long time. It's like, I remember I wrote something on my little, I had a little blog. Okay.
You see it's back. Okay.
But I remember I have two questions. I mean, like, what do you think? So because I remember one night after, like, it was one of the worst times that I was released from the jail, and I had nothing, so I was always worried. I was living on TV, they were making national TV, and they had an interview with you, and I was shocked, I was surprised, and like, I was saying, because the name of hip-hop is like, you cannot say it, or like, being drawn into TV as like Satan worshippers and this type of stuff.
Right.
But I saw the interview. You were interviewed by this young guy, before they made national TV. My first question for you is, how do you feel about this, and what is your opinion? Because again, I was actually looking at your videos last night. Like, most of your interviews are with like media such as RT, like, and it's like you never on CNN, for example, you never on Fox.
I was on CNN.
Wait, let him respond, okay?
Well, first of all, thank you very much.
My question, like, the name of the question is like, what is, like, you always go with the media that supports you and close to you, and isn't it in both sides of the coin? So like
No, I understand what you mean. First of all, no, definitely. I've been on CNN before. I've been on lots of other outlets. RT is definitely not the only one that I've ever done. I've done lots and lots and lots of other interviews. The only problem with when people challenge me about something is I remind them, or I remind people that when I'm challenged about something, that I'm usually very knowledgeable about the subjects that I try to talk about. So it's not a question that I don't go to a place where I can't be challenged, or it's not that I can't be challenged. It's that when I go to these interviews, if you have an argument with your professor, right, and he says, I teach Sassanid history, the period of time in which Persia was faced with the Byzantine Empire and the Greeks instead of Rome, then he's going to give you a completely different analysis of how that empire was set up, who was in charge, how the subsections of this ran. And if you want to argue with him about that, you're probably going to lose, because you're not an expert on the Sassanids. But when I have a conversation with somebody about hip-hop, or about revolution, or about the history of this country, the thing that I find is that very few people actually know what the history of this country really is. They're very confused about the fact that people didn't come here and just apply for citizenship, brother. People came to America and they applied not only for citizenship, but they also applied for whiteness. Now it's interesting that you come from Iran, because two people that were very famous in that case was a Japanese man and a man from Iran. And they said, wait a minute, I should apply for whiteness. I'm from Iran. I'm from the Caucasus region. I'm from where white people come from. I'm an Aryan, whatever. But this guy's skin he glowed in the dark. So how could you say he's not white? And yet the government of the United States said, no, you're from an Asiatic race. You're a Middle Easterner. You have some different blood in you. And they told the Japanese guy, you come from a Mongoloid race. You don't come from the white race. You can't apply to be a Caucasian. So when I have discussions with people about the history of this country, the day you're going to see me confronted is the day you see someone that has just as much knowledge of the history of the United States as I do. And I'm not saying that people don't. It's just that most people who do media and who do news work like that are not historians, brother. And I deal with history, because that's the only way to get to the root of the problem, to find out where it started.
Let me just point out to Ehsan, if you're seeing things on Iranian state television, they're going to be screened.
Right.
And they're going to be more likely to show RT, because RT shows things that tend to be more critical of the United States. I happen to like RT a lot, and I look at more RT programs than I do CNN, but it's because I feel like they're giving us a more true vision sometimes.
Well, I've definitely been on RT, and I said that Vladimir Putin was a war criminal. definitely been on TV, and I've seen the Russians did to Eastern Europe and to part of the Middle East the same thing that America has done to Latin America. And the reason that they did it is because there was no one to stop them. And I think that's the rationale that we must understand. Who's going to stop them now? You know, Iran exists as a country not only because of its self-determination, because it is now permanently tied to Russia. You can't attack Iran without getting Russia involved anymore. Now Syria is the same way. When they sold their chemical weapons programs to the Russians to get out of being bombed by the United States, they made a permanent deal, one that will put them into the Russian fold forever. I think everybody who's analyzing the region at least knows that. They know that the United States right now is too wrapped up in the Ukrainian issue to even go back and start with the Iranians now, but they still have a covert war. And the covert wars that exist between this country and other countries are not based on bombs. Like, for example, if you and I walked into a cafe in another country and we blew ourselves up, that's an act of terrorism. But if you and I are the United States of America and you're Great Britain, and you and I both get in a room together and we say, hey, you know what, we don't like that country. Let's impose sanctions on them. Now, you and I both know that the Revolutionary Guard will never miss a meal, that the embalmers will never miss a meal, right? That the people who run the government will never miss a meal, that President Hussein and the rest of them will never miss a meal. Who will starve and die? The poorest of the poor? And the women and the children? And yet we're not terrorists. We're just citizens of the world.
And this reminds me of Iran Contra, because even after they supposedly, broke relations with them, of course.
It's ironically contradicted.
Yeah,
so that's what it ran from.
Still a lot going on. Did you want to jump in?
No, there's nothing in particular in this conversation.
I just got to say that
I'm not get arrested for saying what I'm saying, and we go back.
Myself, I would just like to see better relations between all of these countries, because I have a lot of respect for Iranians and their gumption and their independence and will and their culture stuff. I also like the Syrians. They're good at combining different mosaic cultures, and they have a very old culture. They have the oldest continually inhabited city in the world with Damascus. They've been at agriculture. I mean, my God, it's like when you go back, and they're still like, there's a great hip-hop culture coming up there. And then I also like America a lot, because I feel like I have still, when I see that you're not in jail, and you're still making records.
Not anymore.
There's hope. There's hope. There still is some freedom here. So, use it while you got it, Do something with it. Francis, let's see. I just wanted to, and now we're talking about maybe impact on the world. I can kind of tie this in. This seems a little like an odd joke, but I did want to bring up the fact that you created a photographic process that doesn't harm artists.
Yeah, well, what happened is artists use materials to create art that is not good for the environment. And back in the day, I used to do graffiti work, and I'm a spoken word artist as well, and I'm connected to many artists that use materials that harm themselves and may not have a long life or are very detrimental to the environment. And I would be in the dark room printing photographs, and it had adverse effects on me where I would break out in rashes, I couldn't breathe, and felt like someone scooped part of my flesh out, when I'd be breathing, and I was like, this isn't good. I dispose of all my chemistry the best way possible because I feel that it's very important that we take care of the earth. So I thought, what can I do? So I sat down with a friend of mine from New York, and we discussed there must be a way, because he was very affected by the chemistry. Even if he was by photographic paper, he would have a reaction. So he was an artist who wanted to create art, but was so affected by the chemicals that he couldn't create art. So we actually started working on different ways, and we came up with an organic solution that I call Verde Luminol. And we're releasing a book soon, but the thing that's going to be great about this, you can put it into the water system, it won't hurt the water system. You can drink it, not that you want to drink it, it's very bitter, but a pregnant woman can print photographs, or someone who has an acute illness can go into the dark room. And it's a very important thing because in the realm of where art begins or music begins, there's always a source at the beginning, right? And there's a resurgence in traditional film and all sorts of process. So with artists that shoot 35 mil or medium format, they can use this process. And I think it's very, very good and important. And the image of this exhibit is the first time I've actually shown environmentally printed. So it's very important. It's blindfold image. Like it's an important image for me as an artist. But what's more important is howling the image. And it's environmentally sound.
And
it has more meaning than the image itself.
So you're creating art without damaging yourself too, because I've done a lot of art conservation, and some of the chemicals that we use sit right on the label. Will do brain damage, and then like let's do like the filters you had to use, and it's like no joke. Like in fact, I was giving some advice to Rakim. These are his first paintings that Rakim, the rapper, who may be coming later. And he first wanted to do aerosol art, and I was like, well, you know, it's really quick and easy to do, and it looks okay, but it's horrible. Like the solvents in it can really do brain damage, or they can like slow down your response time. And if you're a rapper and you're trying to like think on your feet and remember your lyrics, or maybe improvise, like it would be terrible. So I encourage them to use acrylic painted brushes instead. So these things might seem inconsequential. You just want to quick do the thing and get your idea out, but these things have lasting impacts on you and can affect you for the rest of your life. I wanted to give Edward, his name is Spiritual Mike. He has 2 poems, verses in this. I wanted to play his question because he's having a problem with electricity in Damascus, and it's off about 12 hours a day. And they never know when it's going to go off. And I also want to point out the fact that before the war started there, Assad was building, him and not him, because he was promoting the fact that the government was building the Middle East's largest wind farm. So they were trying to invest in renewable energy. So let me see if I can get this to work and get his question.
Syria. I have a question for Immortal Technique. What do you think of what's going on in Syria, the Atour and Ukraine and
Did you hear it?
What's going on in Syria and the Arab world?
And Ukraine.
And Ukraine.
Spend it all in.
Really quick question, right? One of the easy ones to answer. Right, okay. We'll start with what's going on in Syria. I hosted a Twitter debate on Syria on my Twitter feed, and I was explaining this to some young brothers here before, that at first, the first day, we put up pictures of people from the group of rebels, a variety of them, where they admitted that they were getting weapons from the United States and from France and other countries. And I asked, the debate question was, if a sizable percentage of the fighters and a sizable percentage of the weapons are coming from another country, then how is this an organic revolution?
Yeah.
The next day, we asked the question for the opposition. And we said, listen, it doesn't matter how good you paint yourself. If you've been the president of a country for 30 years, then obviously you've fomented something that goes beyond democracy.